Hi, my name is Dr. Johnny Sexton, and I have been a pediatric audiologist for 43 years and the executive director and founder of the CARE Project. The North Carolina Early Hearing Detection and Intervention Program has partnered with the CARE Project to produce sensitivity training for professionals who work with families who have children born deaf or hard of hearing. This training video is designed to enhance the sensitivity of early interventionists on the emotional journey of families and to bring about a shift in the culture of communication as early intervention specialists collaborate with parents regarding resources, priorities, and concerns for their child with hearing loss. Many early interventionists do a great job, and this training is not to insinuate otherwise, but merely to raise the level of awareness on the part of early intervention specialists about the emotional state of parents as receivers of unexpected news. I hope you will enjoy watching this training video and gain greater insight as well. According to the National Institutes of Health website, hearing loss is the most commonly occurring congenital condition in newborns. Approximately 2 to 3 out of every 1,000 children in the United States are born with a hearing loss in one or both ears. More than 90% of deaf babies are born to hearing parents and have no known risk factors. Hearing loss is invisible or not obvious. Why screen all babies? There is evidence that earlier identification of children who are deaf or hard of hearing, accompanied by timely and appropriate interventions, can result in language, communication, cognitive, and social emotional skills that are consistent with the child's cognitive abilities and chronological age.
We wake up and we hear growing up with children and, learning to speak properly. You never realize that the hearing is so important. It can be so involved.
EDI, sounds like ready, stands for Early Hearing Detection and Intervention. EDI has 3 parts. The first part is the newborn hearing screening program, the initial test of infants for hearing loss. EDI also includes audiological diagnostic evaluations to confirm or rule out hearing loss, and early intervention programs, including medical services, early intervention programs, and family support. In the year 2000, 44% of all newborns were screened for hearing loss. Today, almost all newborns are screened. Because of this, thousands of infants with hearing loss and their families are benefiting from early intervention. Every state has an EDI program. The overall goal of the program is to have every newborn screened, and for those infants that do not pass the inpatient screen, rescreened in an outpatient setting by 1 month of age. By 3 months of age, the infants that do not pass the outpatient rescreen should have an audiologic evaluation that results in a diagnosis for each individual ear so that they are receiving early intervention services by 6 months of age. Early intervention also includes amplification if it is appropriate. In the 2019 Joint Committee on Infant Hearing position statement, these goals are more ambitious, encouraging a 1-2-3 timeline for states already meeting the 1-3-6 goals. 2019 North Carolina EDI data reported to the Centers for Disease Control, or the CDC, indicates that 288 babies, or 25.8%, who did not pass their newborn hearing screen were considered lost to follow-up. The national average is 25%. If you think about it, this statistic is high. If hearing loss is identified at a later age, the child's communication skills may lag behind those of their normal hearing peers. 2019 North Carolina data also shows that 70.3% of infants identified with permanent hearing loss enrolled in early intervention or EI services, and 8% were lost to follow-up or documentation. Efforts continue to find ways to reduce loss to follow-up at each step of the EDI process. Screeners are often the first ones to share unexpected news with a family. How this news is delivered to a family can and will influence whether a family follows through to the next step in the EDI process, the outpatient rescreen, or the diagnostic evaluation and/or seeking early intervention. The role of the screener is vitally important in reducing the number of babies who are lost to follow-up. In keeping with the EDI 136 goals, pediatric audiologists are responsible for obtaining accurate, detailed, and timely diagnosis of hearing loss in an infant by 3 months of age, in accordance with their state's pediatric diagnostic protocol. This evaluation may need to include the assistance of an ENT physician if sedation is found to be necessary. Minimizing the number of visits required to reach diagnosis is important in reducing the number of babies who are lost to follow-up. If permanent hearing loss is diagnosed, appropriate referrals must be made. Counseling about and connecting families to early intervention services, family support services, and an ENT physician are critical. Other referrals may include genetics, ophthalmology, radiology, or cardiology. Why is it important for families to visit a pediatric audiologist? A pediatric audiologist will have had training and experience working with infants and toddlers. In order to perform an appropriate pediatric diagnostic assessment, an audiologist will need specific tools and equipment that cannot be found at all audiology offices. Pediatric audiologists work with families, early intervention providers, and educators to assure the best outcomes for children with a hearing loss. How can families find a pediatric audiologist? In North Carolina, the EDI website has a resource that shows all the facilities on the approved diagnostic site list, as well as 2 facilities in the bordering states of Virginia and South Carolina. The audiology facilities included on this list have agreed to follow the diagnostic protocols disseminated by North Carolina EDI. To find this list, visit www.ncnewbornhearing.org. Under related links, click on Diagnostic Testing Sites. To find a pediatric audiologist in other states, visit the Early Hearing Detection and Intervention Pediatric Audiology links to services or EDI PALS website at www.edipals.org. Parents and caregivers are the child's best teachers, and children learn best when they are in familiar places with familiar people. Eating, story time, playing with other children, and taking trips outside are all activities where learning takes place. Research in child learning tells us that everyday activities at home, school, and in the community are the best places for a child to learn. Early intervention providers help parents and caregivers find ways to help their child participate more fully in the activities that are already happening. Early intervention's goal is to help parents and caregivers support and enhance their child's development within everyday routines. A child may or may not be diagnosed with hearing loss prior to enrollment in early intervention. You may be crucial in talking with the parent about follow-up hearing testing. Also, once a diagnosis is made, the family will have many visits with the audiologist while enrolled in their state's early intervention program. As an EI provider, you can be helpful in making the appointment successful for the baby and the family. In talking with the family to prepare for an appointment, some discussion may center around: what do you know about the hearing test appointment? Coach the parent that the electrodes stick better if there is no oil or lotion on the baby's head. Reassure them that testing may take a long time and they should plan to be there for 1 or 2 hours. What time is the appointment? What is the baby's usual nap schedule and routine? It may be helpful to ask for an appointment that is scheduled during nap time. What would help the baby sleep during the appointment? Ideas include not feeding the baby before leaving the house, packing a bottle, pacifier, or blanket, and keeping the baby awake before the appointment. How will you get to the appointment? Who is a supportive person that could go with you? Is there someone to keep other children at home while you go to the visit? What are your thoughts about what the results may be? Talk with your families about what they would like to learn from the audiologist. Ask families if they are interested in support for dealing with a possible hearing loss diagnosis. They may have questions regarding the type and degree of hearing loss. They may be ready to think about hearing aids and cochlear implants. For more great information, go to the CDC link for materials and talking points. Following the audiology appointment, families will be contacted by several agencies, and it is important for families to have a way to keep track of these agency contacts, who they are, and what they do. In North Carolina, one way to keep track is with this who's who and who will be calling card, also known as the yellow card. They may get the card from the audiologist. You may want to help them fill the card out with names and contact information, or create a similar way to keep track of the information. You could suggest that families take a picture of the document with their phone so that they have easy access to it while attending appointments. As stated in the 2013 Joint Committee on Infant Hearing supplement to the 2007 position statement, during the early stages of life, the brain builds the nerve pathways necessary for understanding auditory information. For these reasons, we want to identify hearing loss as early as possible, by the time a child reaches 3 months of age. This enables parents to pursue treatment options early so that a child can learn to communicate comparably with his or her hearing peers. The most intensive period of speech and language development is during the first 3 years of life, a period when a child's brain is developing and maturing. If a child is not exposed to language during this period due to hearing loss, he or she will have more difficulty developing spoken or signed language and reading skills. In North Carolina, we have many agencies to help families. Once a child has been diagnosed with hearing loss, it is key for early interventionists to work together and offer all resources that may benefit the family.
I wish we had started earlier with Gavin, my son. I wish that we had started earlier with him. With us finding out so late that he was deaf, the services didn't start until he was older. But with Tatum, she started getting services at 5 months old. And I see a big difference with how my daughter is able to pick up things so quickly. She was ready to get to school when she was ready, no interpreter needed. But with Gavin, the services started later. And I felt like he struggled a little bit more with communication in comparison to my daughter. So I wish for that reason we had started earlier with my son. Really, for all the parents who are going through that, I do strongly recommend that they start as early as possible because every day matters. It's never too early to teach your children those skills.
As an EI provider, take a deep breath and think of how you can help the family best succeed. The family will need your help. Be prepared to listen, help them navigate the system, connect the family with others, and encourage the family to grow and learn.
Yeah, so parents have told me over the years, this really helped me. You listened to me. You listened. You let me tell my story again and again. And you helped me come up with a plan on my own. I really don't want them to feel like I'm coming in to fix the situation, fix their child. I don't even use I'm coming in to work with your child. I'm coming in to work with you. I'm looking at the parent first. I was trained to work with with children, and I was trained with all these strategies, but I'm only there maybe once a week, maybe once a month. So my job that I've come on now is to help that family.
Be aware of what will not help the family on their journey. Please do not tell families what they should do. Provide information, not opinions.
Parents would share that they felt they should go get that toy or they should do it the way I did it. And that made them feel less than. We all come from different resources and motivations. Maybe they don't even like that toy, or maybe they just feel like I can't do the same thing that she did with that toy. So there's no shoulds. Um, Bringing our own opinions and judgments does not work. We all have them. It's kind of like the assumption thing. It shouldn't come into our practice because how I judge or what I view as this really works may not work for this family. And then that steps into other cultures or other parenting styles, other learning styles. It just doesn't work. We have to stay very factual, but also very understanding.
Every family is different. Guide and collaborate with them. Provide information and help them grow to make decisions on their own. Respect other professionals and work together. Share unbiased information with families and do not bring your agenda to the conversation. Make the effort to seriously check in with the family. Take the extra time for a discussion about how they are really feeling. Ensure that the family knows each provider and the role that provider plays in the bigger picture of the development of their child. It is very important that families attend regularly scheduled appointments with their healthcare team. In coaching families, help them learn each healthcare provider's role in the overall health of the child and the importance of going to those appointments. Reach out before the appointment as a reminder and check in with them following appointments to talk about any changes or questions they may have. It's also important to remember that achieving cultural competency, practicing cultural humility, having a high level of awareness of social determinants of health, recognizing your unconscious bias, and understanding health equity can have a profound impact on our effectiveness as clinicians in communicating information to families. Why is cultural competency important to our work? A person's values, beliefs, and behaviors about health and well being are shaped by many different factors such as race, ethnicity, nationality, language, gender, socioeconomic status, physical and mental ability, sexual orientation, and occupation. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, cultural competence is the ability to provide services to clients that honor different cultural beliefs, interpersonal styles, attitudes, and behaviors, and the use of multicultural staff in the policy development, administration, and provision of those services. The goal of culturally competent healthcare services is to provide the highest quality of care to every patient, regardless of these factors. Achieving cultural competency is an ongoing learning process and is often developed in stages by building upon previous knowledge and experience. Healthcare providers must be taught how to provide services in a culturally competent manner. According to the National Center for Cultural Competence at Georgetown University, it is almost impossible to know everything about culture. Therefore, training approaches that focus only on facts are limited and are best combined with approaches that provide skills that are more universal. For example, skills such as communication and medical history taking techniques can be applied to a wide diversity of clientele. Curiosity, empathy, respect, and humility are some basic attitudes that have the potential to help the clinical relationship and to yield useful information about the patient's individual beliefs and preferences. An approach that focuses on inquiry, reflection, and analysis throughout the care process is most useful for acknowledging that culture is just one of many factors that influence an individual's health beliefs and practices. Some common strategies for improving the patient-provider interaction and institutionalizing changes in the healthcare system include: provide interpreter services, recruit and retain minority staff, provide training to increase cultural awareness, knowledge, and skills, coordinate with traditional healers, use community health workers, incorporate culture-specific attitudes and values into health promotion tools.
Acerca de las barreras que, que enfrenté al principio, una de ellas fue el lenguaje. Yo no hablaba nada de inglés en ese momento. David era mi primer bebé en este país. Yo no tenía mucho tiempo de haber llegado. Bueno, mi primer bebé de siempre. Yo no tenía mucho tiempo de haber llegado a este país. El inglés fue una barrera muy grande para mí. Con intervención temprana, yo deseaba que podría entender bien el inglés, porque a veces tenía algunas preguntas que no sabía si eran preguntas buenas o preguntas que no tenían sentido, o cuando apenas los conocí, las personas de intervención temprana, yo no les tenía confianza, entonces yo me sentía un poco tímida con ellos. yo no sabía cómo poderme comunicar directamente con ellos. Aunque la maestra de la terapista traía una traductora siempre con ella, pero no era lo mismo. La presencia de una tercera persona en una conversación, especialmente en una terapia en la que yo me sintiera cómoda, era, era un poco difícil para mí. Entonces, creo que es lo único que podría decir acerca de el desafío o una barrera que yo enfrenté cuando inicié con intervención temprana fue el lenguaje.
Include family and community members in healthcare decision making. Locate clinics in geographic areas that are easily accessible for certain populations. Expand hours of operation. Provide linguistic competency that extends beyond the clinical encounter to the appointment desk, advice lines, medical billing, and other written materials. The National Center for Cultural Competence, NCCC, at Georgetown University has developed self-assessment checklists to heighten awareness and sensitivity to the importance of cultural and linguistic competence. The NCCC views self-assessment as an ongoing process, not a one-time occurrence. It offers organizations and their personnel the opportunity to assess individual and collective progress over time. The self-assessment tools can be found on the National Center for Cultural Competence website. The concept of cultural humility was developed in 1998 to address inequities in the healthcare field. It is used to increase the quality of interactions between workers and their diverse community members. Cultural humility is a lifelong process whereby the individual not only learns about another's culture, but one starts with an examination of his own beliefs and cultural identities. Tervalon and Murray Garcia, 1998. Cultural humility goes beyond the concept of cultural competence to include a personal lifelong commitment to self-evaluation and self-critique, recognition of power dynamics and imbalances, a desire to fix those power imbalances and develop partnerships with people and groups who advocate for others, institutional accountability. Why are social determinants of health important to our work? Social determinants of health are conditions in the environments in which people are born, live, learn, work, play, worship, and age that affect a wide range of health, functioning, and quality of life outcomes and risks. Health starts in our homes, schools, workplaces, neighborhoods, and communities. We know that taking care of ourselves by eating well and staying active, not smoking, getting the recommended immunizations and screening tests, and seeing a doctor when we are sick all influence our health. Our health is also determined in part by access to social and economic opportunities. The resources and supports available in our homes, neighborhoods, and communities, the quality of our schooling, the safety of our workplaces, the cleanliness of our water, food, and air, and the nature of our social interactions and relationships.
La audióloga me habló sobre intervención temprana y ella me dijo que esta institución era la que iba a trabajar conmigo para poder apoyar a David. Yo me sentí muy feliz al saber que yo no estaba sola. Sabía que había alguien más que iba a estar al lado mío, especialmente porque en ese momento yo era madre soltera. Yo no tenía el apoyo del papá de David y tampoco no tengo todavía familiares cercanos aquí. Tengo a mi esposo y mi otro hijo, pero mis padres, mis hermanos no están aquí en este país. Entonces fue muy difícil para mí, especialmente por todas las emociones que en ese momento sentí, eh, todos los cambios, la noticia inesperada que recibí sobre mi hijo, mi primer bebé, que no la esperaba, fue algo muy, muy difícil para mí. Entonces, cuando la persona del hospital, la audióloga, me habló sobre este programa de intervención temprana, ellos se comunicaron conmigo, empezaron a llegar a la casa, me dijeron de qué se trataba. Yo entendía un poco qué era lo que ellos iban a hacer conmigo, pero en ese momento toda la información era muy confusa para mí. Yo no sabía exactamente cuál era la institución que iba a hacer determinada cosa, porque también me hablaron sobre beginning. Entonces yo a veces recibía una llamada y no sabía de quién era, ¿no? Hasta que me decían, yo soy la persona de beginning o soy la persona de intervención temprana. Entonces yo podía entender quién era, pero al igual fue mucha información al principio para mí. Yo estaba confundida, pero conforme fue pasando el tiempo, fui entendiendo qué era lo que tenía que hacer después, cuál era el paso siguiente a tomar. Y con ayuda de las personas de intervención temprana, que ellos me fueron ayudando a entender y a aclarar mis ideas y a saber exactamente qué era lo que yo tenía que hacer con David, em, fui entendiendo y empecé a trabajar con David lo que tenía que hacer.
Examples of social determinants include availability of resources and access to healthcare services, transportation options, family and social support, social norms, culture, and attitudes, socioeconomic conditions, language literacy. There are many factors a provider should take into consideration when interacting with families. For more information on social determinants of health, you may use the link provided at the bottom of this slide. An additional factor that may impact your interactions with families is implicit or unconscious bias. Implicit bias refers to the attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, and decisions in an unconscious manner. These biases, which encompass both favorable and unfavorable assessments, are activated involuntarily and without an individual's awareness or intentional control. Residing deep in the subconscious, these biases are different from known biases that individuals may choose to conceal for the purposes of social and/or political correctness. Rather, implicit biases are not accessible through introspection. The implicit associations we hold do not necessarily align with our declared beliefs or even reflect stances we would explicitly endorse. Implicit biases are thought to be automatic not only in the sense that they are fast acting, but also because they can operate without intention, i.e., are involuntary and uncontrollable. And conscious awareness. For this reason, implicit biases have also been described as automatic or non-conscious. Social scientist David R. Williams states, "This is the frightening point. Because implicit bias is an automatic and unconscious process, people who engage in this unthinking discrimination are not aware of the fact that they do it." Implicit bias develops early in life from repeated reinforcement of social stereotypes. The implicit association test is a computerized, time dual categorization task that measures implicit preferences by bypassing conscious processing. It is part of Project Implicit, a collaborative investigative effort between researchers at Harvard, University of Virginia, and University of Washington. The studies examine thoughts and feelings that exist either outside conscious or control. The goal is for self-education and awareness. Our implicit biases are not fixed or permanent and can be changed over time, but only by being aware and attentive to them and deliberately focusing on trying to change them, according to the Kirwan Institute. How can we overcome implicit bias in healthcare? It all begins with awareness. You can learn more about your implicit biases by taking the Implicit Association Tests, IATs, through Project Implicit. There are some strategies that are used to help change these biases. Through perspective taking, the cognitive component of empathy, perspective taking can reduce bias and inhibit unconscious stereotypes and prejudices. Think about what others are seeing and hearing, what they are feeling, and their likes and dislikes. Think about the past experiences of others. Emotional regulation skills. Clinicians who have good emotional regulation skills and who experience positive emotion during clinical encounters may be less likely to view patients in terms of their individual attributes and to use more inclusive social categories. It's easier to empathize with others when people view themselves as being part of a larger group. Partnership building skills. Clinicians who create partnerships with patients are more likely to develop a sense that their partner is on the same team working hard toward a common goal. Outside of the office. What changes biases is exposure to different facts, realities, situations, and getting to know real people can change our stereotypes and biases about them. It is also very important to take into account health equity when working with families. What is health equity? Health equity means that everyone has a fair and just opportunity to be as healthy as possible. This requires removing obstacles to health such as poverty, discrimination, and their consequences, including powerlessness and lack of access to good jobs with fair pay, quality education and housing, safe environments, and health care.
Fundamentally, my role as a clinician is to make sure that my patient has what he or she needs to be the healthiest that they can be. But my patient could be anybody. It's not based on class and it's not based on where they live. My patient could be anybody. And that equity is about making sure that everyone has that access. Everyone can be healthy. It's interesting when people start to think of who should and who should not have access to health care. And oftentimes when people engage in that conversation, they forget the privilege that they bring to that situation. They forget that they are privileged to have access to a job or access to insurance or access to providers who are not going to look at them differently or treat them differently. It's interesting to me because when their social situation changes, all of a sudden they're sort of enlightened to, oh my goodness, this isn't fair. This isn't right. They start to understand that privilege allows you to put a blinder on so that you don't see the other person's situation. And understand, there's a saying there, but for the grace of God go I, that we could all be in that situation at any point in time. The other part for me is important is understanding that when we leave people out, we are worse off. We're worse off as a community. We're worse off as a society. What we need is the best of everyone to be able to contribute to the richness of what makes us who we are, what makes us who we are as a nation, as an organization, as a community. But you can't have that if people don't have access to good care. When addressing issues of equity and of justice, when we think about health disparities and we think about diversity, these are daunting problems. These are not new problems. And one person alone can't take on that challenge. That doesn't mean one person shouldn't try to do something where they are. But it's the collective that can make change. It's when the I's come together to form the we's that you have the power to make a difference. And so no one should ever feel this burden of, I have to do it by myself, but understand that together you can make a difference. Together we can move more towards equity. Together we can move more towards social justice.
Parents are going to react to how you deliver the news. Your job has two roles: to give information, but also to give emotional support. Early intervention providers do a great job delivering information to parents on diagnosis and intervention options. However, when it comes to providing adjustment counseling or emotional sensitivity, some are not trained or comfortable doing so. In fact, usually the only experience in providing emotional support comes from on-the-job encounters with families. It is very important that providers learn how to more effectively and sensitively deliver information to parents about hearing loss and intervention options. Parents react in many ways, and these reactions may not be comfortable. Some babies have other complicating factors, and hearing loss may be the least of the family's concerns. Some may deny that there is a problem. Others may isolate from family members, friends, and neighbors. Some, but not all, may embrace this as good news if they themselves are from deaf culture. Over 90% of parents who have a baby born with hearing loss have normal hearing themselves, and the unexpected news is likely going to be more upsetting. The bottom line? No one can predict how parents will react, so we must be as sensitive as possible.
Hi, I'm David Hughes.
I'm Laura Hughes, and we have an almost 5-year-old son who is bilaterally hearing impaired. He is aided bilaterally, and we found out during his newborn screening.
And I remember just naively thinking that, he's got a hearing loss and he'll be all right with hearing aids. It's just, like wearing people that are visually impaired, that wear glasses that bring them back to 2020, I naively thought that was just going to be the, okay, this is what we do to fix it. And it's been a real journey from me just naively thinking that to having someone from the state come to your house once a week for 3 years and having psychologists come in and do
The assessments,
constant
assessments.
It is important to remember that those of us who provide services for these families cannot be successful in counseling parents if we are not unable to approach them without sensitivity to their emotional journey. Feelings just are and cannot be controlled. Behavior can be controlled, and how we communicate news to parents matters.
Families know when you're there and when you're not there, and they get it right away. And if we can, if you're not ready to be there for families, you need to sort of go someplace and take 3 deep breaths and get yourself into a position so when you walk into a family, you're there. I mean, there have been times when I fortunately not many, but I can think of times in my life when I have not been ready to listen, and families knew that and therefore couldn't listen to me because we weren't communicating.
After a diagnosis has been made, every day may bring new challenges. The goal of this part of the training is to help you understand what types of emotions families might experience. Think about unexpected news as an elephant in the room. The feelings that both you and the family experience are centered around that elephant in the room. Those feelings may be uncomfortable, and we will talk about ways to improve communication between you and the family. By the end of this presentation, you will have tools to help families feel more comfortable and less anxious about the outcome. The dream they may have had for their baby suddenly may be changing. They may not know that it's okay to grieve or react to this unexpected news. Do you remember a time where you have experienced grief? Every person has had or will have a grief experience in their lives at some point. Grief is a process. Grief is a part of life. It happens to everyone. Grief comes and goes. Grief can actually have a positive outcome. Everyone experiences grief differently. Both families and professionals are impacted by grief. Grief is a journey. What is grief? Grief comes in response to many different life experiences. Critical illness diagnosis, loss of a pet, inability to have children, body image issues, divorce, failure at school, failure at work, loss of a job, learning your child has hearing challenges. These examples may cause any individual to go through a grief period. Grief means different things to different people. If a baby is born with multiple issues, deafness may be the least of the family's concerns. Or if they struggle to just have the baby, then they may be okay with hearing loss. Men and women will react differently. The siblings and extended family will have different reactions. In some cases, hearing loss may even be celebrated and accepted in the family. Early interventionists should be cognizant of all these factors. There are several emotional stages of grief parents may experience. When parents receive news that they did not expect, usually the first reaction is shock. Parents are stunned because what they have been told doesn't fit in with the life they envisioned for their baby. Many feelings may surface, and parents will react in some of the following ways: upset, cry, traumatized, hysterical, blown away. After the shock begins to wear off, many parents may enter a stage of denial. Not my baby. This can't be happening to me. It isn't true. It can't be true. The audiologist must be wrong. Reject the news. Total disbelief.
And I don't know. I may have just been angry. I really don't know. But I remember going to the care project, and I don't want to say I had a chip on my shoulder, but I feel like I sometimes still do. I'm still in denial sometimes. I still go to the audiology, get the test done, and I don't know, for some reason I'm thinking that when he does this next test, it's going to show that his hearing's getting better.
He's going to have outgrown it.
I don't know why, and I still have that hope, and I have the dread of it's getting worse.
Parents will eventually begin to realize that this news is true, and then the pain sets in. Many words have been used by parents to describe this pain: aching, hurt, tortured, wounded, suffering, undone, anguish.
But then you tell your family all the results, and of course they say everything's going to be okay.
And then it came out, and they said, I remember them saying, "Oh, we found some type of hearing loss, or some loss." So I was thinking, oh, well, can't be that, just some. And then we went in, and they were like, and I remember the words I was looking for. I didn't want it to be sensorial, and I didn't want it to be profound. And they were the first words that came out of their mouth. And
everybody says that's what they say is it could be worse, and you hear that a lot. And like I've heard in other videos, which help, is it can't be worse. Not at that time. Someone tells you, wow,
yeah, in that moment,
tells you that something's wrong with your kid. No matter what it is, I can't. It can't be worse at that time.
When people are emotionally wounded, an immediate reaction often is anger. Parents who receive this unexpected diagnosis may become angry and start blaming others for it, even blame the other parent at times. Parents may lash out, becoming outraged and furious that this is happening to them. Depression may very well follow the anger. The truth sinks in. Parents realize that what they envisioned is indeed no longer their reality. Parents may have a sense of hopelessness for a period. We must always remember that this is part of a normal process of grieving. Usually, with the encouragement of others, parents will embrace the truth. They will realize that it is time to move forward and get the information needed to have a clear indication of what to do next. During this time, it is important for the parents to find a peace about the situation within themselves, as well as with those around them. Remember that anger stage? Relationships can be damaged when parents lash out at each other. Parents cannot stop at the point of acceptance. Families must move forward to learn and understand how to best advocate for their child. All families want the best life possible for their children, and this is no different because their baby has a hearing challenge. Throughout the child's life, the parents and the family may find themselves experiencing some form of grief again. This is also normal. There will be transitions for the child from early intervention to preschool, from preschool to kindergarten, to elementary school, to middle school, to high school, and beyond. Parents will have some of these emotions surface as their child moves through these different periods. But then again, any family will have these feelings. Remember, grief is a part of life and can surface anytime along the family journey. Here are the stages of grief that we just discussed. Not all parents grieve the same way, and some may go through all of the stages and others just a few.
I think early intervention providers need to understand that hearing loss is invisible, and it's easy for parents to ignore, to deny if they are in that stage of the grief process. Parents are often seeing their babies do exactly what all the other babies are doing. And if they are in denial, it's our responsibility to help them see down the road what is going to be the outcome if their child does not have the access to sound that they need. So there's a lot of information that we know, but we have to be delicate with all of that and help that family get to that point where they can accept that information.
Grief is a journey. It is not easy getting from point A to point B. The journey can be messy and unpredictable. The journey begins before the baby is born. Parents anticipate the birth of their new baby, and a bond is established before the birth occurs. Many wonderful, happy thoughts occur. My baby will be perfect, beautiful, smart. But there is news that comes in some cases that is unexpected. You still have a wonderful baby. It's just a slight detour in your journey, a detour that wasn't expected. However, the destination is still beautiful. Here is a story that is often told to parents who receive unexpected news with the birth of a new baby. Welcome to Holland by Emily Pearl Kingsley. I am often asked to describe the experience of raising a child with a disability, to try to help people who have not shared that unique experience to understand it, to imagine how it would feel. It's like this. When you're going to have a baby, it's like planning a fabulous vacation trip to Italy. You buy a bunch of guidebooks and you make your wonderful plans. The Colosseum, the Michelangelo David, the gondolas in Venice. You may learn some handy phrases in Italian. It's all very exciting. After months of eager anticipation, the day finally arrives. You pack your bags and off you go. Several hours later, the plane lands. The stewardess comes in and says, "Welcome to Holland." Holland, you say? What do you mean Holland? I signed up for Italy. I'm supposed to be in Italy. All my life I've dreamed of going to Italy. But there's been a change in the flight plan. They've landed in Holland, and there you must stay. The important thing is that they haven't taken you to a horrible, disgusting, filthy place full of pestilence, famine, and disease. It's just a different place. So, you must go out and buy new guidebooks, and you must learn a whole new language, and you will meet a whole new group of people you would never have met. It's just a different place. It's slower paced than Italy, less flashy than Italy, but after you've been there for a while and you catch your breath, you look around, and you notice that Holland has windmills, and Holland has tulips, and Holland even has Rembrandts. But everyone you know is busy coming and going from Italy. And they're all bragging about what a wonderful time they've had there. And for the rest of your life, you will say, yes, that's where I was supposed to go. That's what I had planned. And the emotions connected to the unexpected news will never go away because the loss of that dream is significant. But if you spend your life grieving the fact that you didn't get to Italy, you may never be free to enjoy the very special, the very lovely things about Holland. A diagnosis of hearing loss will be unexpected in most cases. However, in some cases, the unexpected news may be that the baby does not have hearing loss. Remember that families will differ in their emotional reactions. As you begin to provide services for the family, it is so important that you consider how you will share information. You will need to plan ahead. Be confident in how you deliver information, and be prepared to show emotional support along the way.
I remember she's asked me specifically, Mrs. Bennett, are you shocked? Are you surprised? Like kind of curious as to why we're surprised. I mean, we've had 3 months and we've had all these re-screenings at the hospital. And I said, well, yeah, they just kept saying it was fluid. And they, no one ever said it really is a very strong possibility after this 2-week outpatient that there's a very strong possibility there is something permanent here.
And so the emotional journey begins. Parents learn something different from what they expected. The early intervention specialist very soon enters the picture, and this can be overwhelming to parents. Professionals, as they should, dump lots of information on the parents because it is their job to do so. Parents are usually not allowed enough time to process their emotions. The early intervention specialist must be prepared to lend emotional support to parents if they get upset. They may need to share information more than once so that the parents are able to retain what is being said to them.
They finally come and get me, and they pull me back there, and she tells me Madison does have a mild to moderate hearing loss. And I don't even think I heard those words that day, because I'm holding my baby. She's screaming, she's crying, she's disoriented, she's upset. And then the questions start flowing. Well, can you stop today? And can you get her fitted for ear molds? And we'll pick out hearing aid colors and this and that. I could have picked out black for all I knew that day, but we picked out purple. And I think that next month, because she actually got her ears and her ear molds on March 8th, which is her hearing birthday, was a month that I didn't deal with it.
What you say and how you say it will have an impact on the families. You don't want to dump a lot of information at once. Many parents are unable to process a lot of information, and it is recommended that you break information into parts shared over time. Try not to do the following things. Avoid eye contact. Dismiss the results and blame it on broken equipment or possibly fluid in the ear. Nervously talk. Tell parents how to feel. Tell parents what you would do. Tell parents that it could be worse or that everything is okay. When faced with an overload of information, humans tend to go to a different place in the brain. Memory shuts down. Information is not processed. Yet professionals tend to expect parents to remember everything at one time. This, in turn, can lower self-esteem.
I'm sure that the audiologists do a good job of initially explaining the results of those hearing tests, but families often report that they really remember nothing beyond your child has permanent hearing loss. And so often everything else just kind of becomes a blur after that moment in time. Every time parents return from an audiology visit, we review their understanding of the audiogram and make note of any changes in their child's hearing thresholds. We also discuss any issues with amplification and wear time. A family I'm working with has recently received news that their child's hearing loss has worsened to the point that he may no longer benefit from hearing aids. So they are in the process of learning the difference between hearing with a hearing aid and hearing with a cochlear implant.
An effective strategy that is highly recommended is called hitting the pause button.
He was diagnosed at 2 weeks of age with a moderate to severe sensorineural hearing loss at 1 year. And the news was shocking. I think probably every parent who gets the news probably goes into the diagnostic evaluation ready to hear bad news, but it's still shocking. You know, the great thing that we heard on that very first day of diagnosis was that we didn't have to make a decision that day, that we had time to process it, and that was such a gift. Sorry. And so that's what we did. We had time to think about it and to grieve it differently, but also share that experience with one another, which was so wonderful.
Once you have shared information, stop and ask what questions the parents may have. Ask them what they need. Some parents may need time to process the news while others may not. Some parents may become emotional. Don't leave the parents hanging with no closure and no plan. Take a break before giving more information and make sure you establish a plan for follow-up. Here are some summary points to remember from this training video. Parents' reactions can be unexpected. Remember to hit the pause button and give parents time to think. Grief is a process with many stages. Keep it simple. Avoid unfamiliar medical terms when explaining results.
The thing that frustrated me so much with audiologists was they would use acronyms. And I didn't know a thing about it. He'd say, well, maybe you should go to DPI, or she's going to need an IEP and stuff like that. Well, I had never been exposed to stuff like that, and I hated to ask questions, so I'd leave there just so frustrated and not knowing what he was talking about.
Remember EDDI 136 goals. By 1 month of age, screening. By 3 months of age, diagnosis. By 6 months of age, early intervention. Support families in keeping scheduled appointments with providers. Keep in mind cultural competency and humility, social determinants of health, implicit bias, and health equity when communicating with families. Use an interpreter when needed. Remember to hit the pause button and really listen to what a family is saying. Help the family connect with professionals, such as pediatric audiologists and other support systems and resources. You are an important first step in guiding families on their journey.
Early intervention providers need to know that every child with hearing loss is so unique, and that there is no magic formula for a child with hearing loss. Their parents' desires for their communication play a huge role in the skilled intervention that's provided to them. And in most situations, full-time usage of their hearing technology is extremely important, because if children don't have access, we can't expect them to build audition and spoken language skills, which is generally a goal of most families.
Early intervention providers have a major impact on the lives of families. Families are on an emotional journey, and the sensitive sharing of information is essential to a positive outcome.
La parte más valorada cuando intervención vino a mi casa, lo que yo más valoro de haber recibido intervención temprana, de que mi hijo haya estado expuesto a intervención temprana, es que aunque al principio cuando yo supe sobre ellos, cuando yo supe sobre intervención temprana y supe que ellos eran la institución que iban a apoyarme y estar conmigo todo el tiempo, yo no lo entendía cómo iba a funcionar, pero después de varios meses, después de que pasaron años, yo me di cuenta que ellas se convirtieron en las personas más cercanas a mí, se convirtieron en familia. Yo todavía las recuerdo con mucho cariño, todavía las recuerdo y pienso en ellas como los ángeles que llegaron a mi vida y a la vida de David para podernos apoyar. Ellas fueron una clave muy importante del éxito de mi hijo. Con, eh, con ellas yo me sentía en confianza para poderles preguntar cosas simples que yo pensaba que tal vez eran preguntas que no valían la pena hacer. Llegué a tenerles la confianza de poder hablar con ellas abiertamente sobre mis sentimientos, sobre cómo me sentía, y fueron personas que me estuvieron apoyando siempre, fueron personas que estuvieron siempre ahí para mí, am, enseñándome muchas cosas, guiándome. Yo siempre les preguntaba sobre actividades que yo podía hacer con mi niño, y también ellos me ayudaron a encontrar lugares para tener ayuda para mi hijo, y lugares en los que yo me podía reunir con otros padres para saber más, con otros padres que tuvieran niños con em, dificultad auditiva también, para que mi niño no se sintiera solo, y así empecé a conocer a varias familias también. Eso, la presencia del programa de intervención temprana en mi vida fue la clave para que yo pudiera iniciar a sentirme mejor en mis emociones también.